My name is Agata Malec, and I'm Senior Software Engineer at DeepSense. And today we will be talking about React and TypeScript and how to start in 2024. And here you can see our agenda. So the first thing will be some discuss about most popular technologies in the previous year. And next, we focus on some React and some main concepts. And the next thing will be a little bit about TypeScript and installation. That will be something that I think it's maybe most interesting from this presentation. I hope not, but for me, it is a nice topic. And the last part of this presentation will be testing tools and storybook. So here we have some survey, and Stack Overflow in previous year created his annual survey about how developers learn, how level up, and what they want to use from some technologies. And as you can see, for professional developers, the JavaScript was on the first place with almost 66%. And when we think about web technologies, the React and Node, they have almost the same place with almost 43%. So right now we can talk something about React. So what the React is and what is not. So React is a library for web application in native user interfaces. And the most important thing from this slide is not maybe information about if React is library or not, but the information that you can, of course, install the pure React library and use it. But if you create some maybe bigger project, you maybe need something more tools, like, for example, state manager, some routing, some build tools, and maybe something to the fetch. And sometimes when you're working on some bigger, for example, when you need a React on the backend side too, maybe you need something like a framework. And this time you can use, for example, Next.js or Remix. And we will be talking about Next.js in a moment. Okay, here we have some kind of demo, maybe example of some page and it's a dashboard. And as you can see, we have some, on this dashboard, some panels. So you can treat these panels like maybe some kind of components and some small pieces of application that we can cut. And of course, every of this smaller component we can cut to the smaller logic component, of course. And I put on the screen one of these panels, as you can see, and on the right I put some example of how these panels could look like in React. And of course, this is only example. And you can see we have two imports with some outside components. And the main thing is, of course, this function. And this function is component because it's returning something that looks like HTML. Of course, this is not HTML, this is JSX, but we will be talk about it in a moment. Yeah, so the component could be a function in React and could be a class too. Okay, so a few concepts right now about React. And of course, you can find a lot of main concepts depending on React, connecting with React. But from my perspective, maybe this 3-1 will be interesting for you. So first, virtual DOM. So before we start to talk about what the virtual DOM is, we need to focus on to understand what the real DOM is. And DOM is it means a document object model, and it's a structure of object represent the elements of HTML document. So that means if you can imagine that you writing a code, HTML code in your file, so every element in this file is represented by object in the browser. So that's the DOM. And why we need the virtual DOM? Why we cannot working on the real DOM? in our project. So every time you do some update in the DOM, the browser reflows the page according to the actual content, and those reflows are very expensive. So that's why we need something different, and this is virtual DOM. Virtual DOM is a copy of real DOM. So this is a tree-like structure where each element in this tree corresponds with the real DOM. So we use virtual DOM to minimize the number of DOM manipulations and calculates the most efficient way to update the DOM. And here we have some few words about J6. And J6 is formally an extension on JavaScript, and help us to create some DOM elements in some XML-like syntax. So as you can see on the right on this code, we have some function, and this function is returning some kind of XML, but it's not, it's a J6. And after some transpiling, for example, for bubble, you can see that we have some function that waiting for three arguments, and first one should be, could be, for example, name of the tag, the name. The second, that could be some attribute for this tag, and the last one, it's a content. And of course, at the end, we have some object that is built from these options. And the cool thing from J6 is that you can use JavaScript expressions inside curly braces. And of course, you can create your own elements, components, so that I said before. Okay, and the next interesting thing in React is data flow. So in React, we have one directional data flow, and this is a very big topic, but one of the interesting thing in this section is data binding. So you can imagine that if we have a state in our app, so on Facebook, they said that the state should be a single source of truth. And that means that state should know everything about any changes on your page, on your app, for example. So that means that we have on the sketch below some default watcher. So every time that state is changed, the interface know about these changes. But when user, for example, doing something on the page, some filling inputs or clicking something, you need to set some event to observe this field and set to state. Hi, state, something's changed, you need to update yourself. So that's the way in React. And in this sketch here, we have two ways data binding, as you can see. And this data binding is using in Angular, for example. Okay, so a few words about TypeScript. So as you know, JavaScript is dynamic and weak typed language. So the TypeScript help us to add some static types to JavaScript. And yeah, it is a superset of JavaScript language. So that means that you can write your JavaScript vanilla.js code in your TypeScript files, and everything will be fully compiled. And I mean vanilla.js as a normal JavaScript. And we have, of course, every types for primitives like string, numbers, boolean, and more. And TypeScript help us to add some new type definitions for some other libraries and frameworks, like, for example, for React. And we have cool things like interfaces, classes, and generics here. And here I have some simple function in JavaScript. And as you can see, this function is waiting for some object. And this object is described by interface. As you can see here, we have two properties, like name should be string and age should be a number. And it's returning from this function should be a string. And here I put a very simple, really simple two example of component. And this component grid here is waiting for some props. and this props is described by this interface here. And here we have a name, and it could be string. And the interesting thing is the children. That children could be React Node or React Node array. And on the right here, I put some screen from GitHub, and with some more different types from React. As you can see, React element, DOM element, and more. We have a lot of these types for React. And of course, for other libraries and frameworks too. Okay, so we know something about what is React and what is TypeScript and how to install it right now, how to install it in 2024. So you can see here 3 circles, and the first one is we have 11.1 million GitHub repositories that depends on Create React App. And this is a lot, I think. We can see that the second one has 2 million GitHub repositories, depends on Next.js, and 2.6 depends on Vite. But because we have here big number, it could be good choice. But as you can see, it's grayed out this circle. And that's because this tool is deprecated right now. And you can find a lot of pages that maybe they recommended use Create React App, but you have to know that this is a good tool, but it has some limitation in projects, configuration and customization. We have some problems with performance there and more. And of course, you can use it, and this is very simple. But if you want to add some advanced configuration to your project, that will be very difficult or sometimes impossible. So we have a Next.js and Vite, and of course what we choose depends on many factors. And I don't want to compare these two tools right now because there are 2 different animals. But I would like to show you that what we can do with these tools and what we have there, like what kind of feature there. Okay, so Vite first, and Vite means quick from French, and this is build tool for modern web application, and originally designed for Vue.js, but right now we can use it with React and with other frameworks or libraries. And it offers us a zero config mode, but of course we can do some more advanced things with configuration if we need it. We have here very extremely fast hot module replacement. And hot module replacement means that you can change something on your app before without reloading. And this is really helpful when you're working in a dev mode. And they really cool describe this extremely fast HMR on their page. They add some features to native as modules. Yeah. And the Vite has a good compiler as built. It's written in Go language. And this compiler is not only compiler, it's build, minify, and more. But good tool. And it's a good compiler for TypeScript and JavaScript, and it's very, very quick. Okay, so a few words about Next.js. So as I said, this is a totally different tool, and you can use, of course, Next.js in your project, but Vite is a build tool and Next.js is a framework. So that means that you can build here, for example, full stack web application. That means that you can use, for example, React on the server side and on the client side. And yeah, we have here both like zero config and full control over configuration. This is very similar to Vite. And we have good compiler here. It's a speed web compiler. Yeah, this is compiler for TypeScript and JavaScript too. And we have here a simple and convenient routing system, good support for HMR. And of course, the very interesting thing is about creating page apps, I think, as server-side rendering. So that means that you can render your page on the server and send to the client. But of course, that means that you need to wait for head rating by JavaScript your page. So we have some here some advantages and some challenges, like everywhere. Okay, and a few slides about how easy it is to install the Vite and React in Next.js. And as you can see here, we have a one command line, and this is npm create Vite at latest, and we can choose what React, what framework or libraries we want to use. And then we need to only install and run this, run our project, and we can see our page that works on our local host. That means that everything is working. So this is really, really easy. And the same is with Next.js. You only put this command to the terminal and choose some configuration, basic configuration if you want, and everything will be works. And yeah, we have an npx here. So that means, because npm means node package manager, and here we have a tool that you can use some package, but without installing it on your local machine. So that's cool. And after run, you can see on your local host this kind of page. That means that everything works. Okay, so a few words about testing practices for React and TypeScript. So we have three circles here, as before. And I put here enzyme because sometimes you can find something in the blogs, in some websites, information that enzyme is very popular testing tool for React, but it's not. Right now, it's not. Of course, it's a good library, but right now it's not support new version of React. So you need to watch out because right now we have 18 React version of 18. And if you want to use enzyme, you need to downgrade your React to 16 number. Yeah, so what else if we want to use, if you want to test React, we can use a React testing library. And of course, this is a library for testing components in React, but we need something more like test runner and assertion. So that's why I put here Jest, and with enzyme you need to use Jest too, if you want, of course. Okay, so we will be talking about these two testing tools. We have a Cypress here tool. This is good. This is a good tool for testing, for doing end-to-end testing in a real user environment. Yeah, so we can discuss about it right now. So first, maybe a few words about Jest. So it's a simple framework for unit tests, and you can use it because it has a test runner in Node. We have here test frameworks, so your test can look better. And we have very good assertion tools, but we don't have anything for testing components, React components. So that's why we need a React testing library. And this library is built on the top DOM testing library. As you can see, that means that you can test here some normal DOM elements. And with React testing library, this is some extension of it, and you can test React components. And it's more focused on unit and integration testing. And the main motto of this library is test like a user. So that means that you should test or maybe focus on user interacts, not on the details on components. And here I put some simple example of tests in React testing library and Jest. So after some imports, we have a render method. And as you can see, that means that we need to, of course, render a component if you want to do something with it. Like, for example, if you want to click on the button, this button should exist on the DOM. So that's why we need to render this component. And we're waiting for finding the button and click on it. And after that, we do some assertion here. So that's simple. Yeah, and a few words about Cypress. It's a really cool tool to test, to do some regression testing. Yeah, so we can do end-to-end testing, and it allows us to simulate real user interactions. So that means you can test clicking buttons, filling inputs, and more. And the Cypress, it runs directly in the browser. So that means you can, in a live, for example, debugging your code or your tests. And it executes in the same JavaScript context. So that means you have access to all browser resources. And it's really easily integrate with continuous integration. Okay, and here I put some screen from demo of Cypress. So how you can, for example, how test looks like when you're testing normal to-do lists. And yeah, so the left panel is showing how this test is working, and everything is happened in the same moment. So, for example, when this test can add new to the items is working, so we can see on the right side in the page how this new to the item is added to the list, for example. And you can choose your browser. You can choose a lot of configuration here. So, for example, if you don't want to see the browser, you can use it without browser. So that's cool. And there is a lot of advanced things that you can do here. Okay, and when you're using Cypress, you can test your application, and you can test, of course, your components. So here, this is not a code for the to-do list, but I would like to show you how you can mount, for example, something. This is because we do something very similar in the React testing library. So here we have a mount function, and yeah, you can use it to put this component into the DOM. I mean, mount it in the DOM, and after that, do something with this element. So that's easy. And the last thing is Storybook. And this is a really cool tool for developers, for teams. And you can test and document your UI component and develop them. And this is like outside application that you can run in your project. And you can see your components on your, or maybe your UI interfaces in isolation. So, for example, I put this screen here with some basic button. And of course, you can see some state of this button. You can change some options. You can see how this button behave in some special cases, and more and more. This is, of course, very, very simple example, but you can imagine that we can, for example, create here some more advanced components, not only one element, but bigger. Okay, and this picture maybe show you how this could be complicated without Storybook. So, for example, we have one component, and you want to check how this component it will be behaving in some special states. So, for example, if I have in the red color, and I would like to check how it looks like on Firefox and with horizontal viewport, and maybe how it behaves in some disabilities. You can check in Storybook, because it is very simple to check it, because we have access to this component in this all states in one place. And if we have a big application, finding this special state will be very, very difficult. For example, imagine that you should fill some forms or click a lot of pages or something more. So that will be very difficult. Okay, so some summary about Storybook. So you have very isolated components. So that's cool. You can see how they work and how they look. And the documentation is generated automatically based on descriptions. So that's cool. And these elements and components are interactive. So you can send, for example, to your team what you want to show them, like what kind of, right now we're working on some elements, and for example, backend don't know how they works and how they behave, how they should use. So that's cool, I think. Okay, and a summary. So I put in one place all of these logos because I know that it was a lot. And I would like to focus at the end on what we talk, what I said. So we talk a little bit about React and TypeScript, and I didn't say everything. So you can find a lot of tools and libraries that are popular right now. But from my perspective, these that I mentioned were very helpful, because if you want to start, for example, with something with and Next.js, of course, that depends on the bigger, what are you creating right now, it will be good choice. And of course, I didn't say anything about a lot of interesting sections like state management, fetching, and more libraries, routing. So maybe next time. And I think that something about testing, it helps you to choose some good library. Yeah, so that's all. Thank you.